Welcome to The Whole Pineapple. I'm Ruby Boris.
And I'm Ann Judge. The Whole Pineapple is a podcast about wellness focused around fertility. And on these weekly mini episodes, we bring you bite-sized ideas for you to snack on.
Like breathing exercises, book reviews. Maybe we'll review some scientific research, or we'll share some wellness and fertility stories from our listeners.
So if you're looking for a tip or a trick related to your fertility and well-being, then you come to the right place.
Let's dig in.
Welcome back to the Whole Pineapple Short Snack Edition, and we are thrilled to welcome back Jamie Mammenga to the show. Jamie's one of our counselors here at Seattle Reproductive Medicine, and today she's going to be bringing you tips and tricks for self-care during these spring holidays. If you love Jamie, you are in luck. She's going to be doing these mindful moments on one short snack episode each month, and of course, you can go back to one of our early episodes for a full episode where she talks a lot more about her background. But here's Jamie, and enjoy.
I am so happy to be joining you again for another mindful moment, and I'm looking forward to sharing some tools each month that I hope you will find helpful. However, instead of focusing today on a meditation or mindfulness practice, I wanted to spend a little time talking about the holidays. I know we typically think of fall and winter as the holiday season, so sometimes we forget that spring brings its own holidays for many cultures and religions that can be really difficult to navigate while going through fertility journeys. Also, as spring begins to blossom and the sun begins to shine, people seem to come out of their winter hibernation with renewed joy and brightness and a desire to connect and reconnect. This increased desire to be social may be even more true for those who have felt so constrained and isolated by the pandemic. Over the years, there have been many clinical studies done that have proven that many people during the holidays experience an increase in anxiety and depression during the holidays. There have also been studies related to the increased levels of anxiety and depression that people can experience during their fertility journeys. And these two things mixed together and coupled with the pandemic and other micro and macro stressors can create sort of a perfect storm for many individuals and couples going through fertility journeys. Infertility is something that we term as a life crisis in the field of mental health, and it's often described as an emotional roller coaster by those who are in it or who have gone through it. Unfortunately, one of the tricky parts of this roller coaster is that you don't get to choose whether or not you get on this ride, and you typically have no idea when you will be able to get back off. For some, holidays can become sort of a time marker that makes us remember where we were at in our lives during this time last year and cause us to think into the future about what we hope will be happening in our lives during this time next year. And it can help us remember also all the things that have sort of happened in between and our fears and hopes moving forward. Also, holidays tend to be a time where we gather with friends and family and loved ones. And this prospect can cause us to feel both excitement and dread, sometimes in equal amounts. And what I know to be true for many infertility journeys is that gatherings with loved ones around holidays tend to be fraught with potential triggers. People asking questions about your plans for pregnancy or expanding your family. People bringing up your fertility journey in moments you weren't prepared for or weren't expecting. People offering advice or sharing stories about other fertility journeys that they're familiar with. Well-meaning people trying to infuse you with hopefulness while also unknowingly invalidating your experience and your potential grief. Or maybe just people avoiding the topic altogether. All the while, you may be learning the pregnancy news of others, celebrating new additions to the family or to your friends' families, and potentially attending child-centered holiday events. So with many of us experiencing spring holidays, I wanted to take a moment to share some tips I hope will be helpful. But please remember there aren't any right or wrong ways to manage holidays, and you are the expert on you, and you are the expert on your relationships. So to start off, I wanted to encourage you to above and beyond anything else I'm going to say, to treat yourself with compassion and kindness. You may find that some of the joy of the holiday and events surrounding you may feel incongruent with what you are feeling emotionally on the inside. And I want to let you know that it is okay to be sad and it is okay to not be okay. So please hold yourself with kindness and be gentle with yourself, like you would for any loved one that you would have in your life that would be going through something similar. You wouldn't be hard on them. You would treat them with kindness and gentleness. And I really hope that you can do the same for yourself during this time. Also, I really encourage that you try to pre-plan or plan ahead for events. You can pick and choose what you attend, and you can also pick and choose for how long. You do not need to be there for the whole time. You do not need to attend everything. So it is okay to say no. It can be uncomfortable, but I promise it is okay to say no. It is okay to care for yourself in this way. Also, I want you to remember that sometimes things that felt okay and good last year, they may not feel the same way this year or vice versa. And so it's okay to pivot if you need to. And, if something is not as easy as you had hoped or thought it would be, it's okay to just acknowledge that and maybe do something different. In addition to sort of picking and choosing what you attend, I also encourage that you be prepared for triggers. So plan to practice responses to questions and statements that you can anticipate being painful or offensive or insensitive. When you have prepared responses that you are comfortable with, that you can kind of pull out of your back pocket in a moment of trigger, this really helps put the power and control back in your court. And when you're in a fertility journey, you need the power and control in your court wherever you can get it, because there's so much that is out of your control in a fertility journey. It's also okay to be kind to yourself if you happen to freeze or you forget one of these, responses in that moment of trigger, because that happens all the time for all of us. But I really would encourage that you maybe try to practice these with somebody that sort of gets this, or that really cares about you. Somebody that you can kind of go through things that could be painful or responses you anticipate getting from that friend or family member when that's something that happens, with some frequency. You just know it's going to happen. Practicing these responses in advance can be really helpful. Make sure you have an out or an escape plan. I kind of think of this like, going out on a really bad date and, you kind of think it might not go well. And so you plan with, a friend, hey, call me at this time so that I can have a way to get out of this. Sometimes it's really helpful to do this with holiday events. Make sure you have an out or an escape plan. So if you are feeling really emotionally overwhelmed, you can leave. You can go do something different. You can get yourself out of that situation if possible. Even if it's just to, even if like maybe you've traveled to get to this place, maybe it's something that you can, just step away and take a walk, with a friend or somebody, or just even on your own. Just excuse yourself for a little bit of time if possible. Say you need to take a phone call or whatever that is. If possible, and this is a tough one, it's always helpful if you can find out ahead of time if there's going to be any pregnancy announcements at holiday events, because this is something that happens frequently. And, for people in your life that are sort of in that phase of life, it can be really helpful to kind of reach out to them ahead of time and just kind of let them know, hey, if there's going to be, I don't know if this is happening in your life, but I'm just trying to let people know ahead of time that, if there is an announcement like this coming for you, and this is, I think, helpful even outside of holidays, but if there's something like this that could come up for you, if you could please let me know over a text message, prior to an event, that would be really helpful. A text message can be really helpful because then you can have your own reaction, kind of in private, and then, kind of have the reaction with them that you were hoping that you would want to have, that you would hope to have with them and celebrate them. But sometimes you need to just be able to feel upset about it, and that's okay. Also, I want to encourage you to, treat yourself with kindness over, the fact that sometimes we don't want to respond in ways that we're responding, right? We don't want to feel angry or bitter or jealous, but many of us do. And, when we're hearing these other pregnancy announcements and, The reality is that, this person's greatest joy just happens to be our greatest suffering. And we want very badly to support them in the way that we normally would and what feels good for us, what we know would feel good for them. Sometimes that's really hard to do. And that's okay. But I know that sometimes we can feel a little at war with ourselves over kind of our internal reactions and how different that might be than what it was before this journey or what it would have been before this journey. When you're at a holiday event, finding those that you really do enjoy having conversations with, there's always usually people at events that we really enjoy talking with and spending time with. And then some people maybe that we enjoy a little less and, kind of try to stick with having those conversations with the people that you really enjoy throughout the evening, if possible, or throughout the day. And then finally, social media can be extremely triggering during the holidays. So please be mindful of your emotional bandwidth around this. I find that many people find it helpful to take a digital break during the holidays. This isn't going to be the right move for everyone, but for some people, this can be really helpful because the holidays tend to elicit a lot of pictures of kids, again, pregnancy announcements, all kinds of things that people have sort of been waiting for that holiday for. The landscape on social media can be pretty fraught during holidays, pretty triggering. Sometimes it's nice to just take a little break. And then, whatever plan you've made for your holiday, really want to encourage that you give yourself permission to ditch it. You never know how you're going to feel as an event rolls around. And it is okay to change the plan. It is okay to not go. It is okay to change how long you go for or whatever it is. Or maybe you'll just be feeling better than you thought. And so it's okay to go to an event that maybe you weren't planning to attend. But really, the most important part is listening to yourself. Lastly, don't be afraid to create your own holiday traditions. Just because this is something that you have grown up doing or that there's an expectation around, it doesn't mean you need to do it. And it is okay to create your own holiday traditions that are meaningful for you, especially during this tender time. And what's most important is that you find the balance of what feels the most restorative and the best for you at this point in your fertility journey. So again, there is no right or wrong way to navigate a holiday. And I hope some of these ideas prove helpful for you. And remember that what feels good for one person may not work as well for someone else. However you feel and whatever you need to make it through this time is unique to you and is absolutely okay. So please be kind, be gentle, and I will be wishing you well until next time. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Whole Pineapple Podcast. We hope it was helpful.
If you know someone who could benefit from hearing the podcast, we hope you'll share it with them.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review The Whole Pineapple on your favorite podcast app. Every rating and review makes us easier to find.
This podcast is sponsored by Seattle Reproductive Medicine and is produced by Audiotocracy Podcast Production. We'll see you next time. Have a delicious week.